I had to interrupt. Sorry about that. There was a problem with the storage on my camera. I hope I can finish this painting now. But I did have a very short video that I plan to post also as part 2. Is a very short one. So this blue, I like it better. It's nicer to have the blue skies against all of these purplish colors of the clouds, and the clouds are going to be, as you can see, I'm just brushing it very lightly on top of the clouds so that the clouds look less specific, less formed, if I can use that term, and less defined. I think it looks nicer when I have this lighter shapes on the clouds rather than sharp shapes. And again, you know, lighter on the horizon. I decided to put this blue. The pink underneath is going to show because we're painting layers. It's a good way to show still some of these colors, but I'm making this a bit softer. And these clouds have, you know, different shapes. Of course, I might reestablish some clouds. So I'm just getting here to the area where it's going to be a bit lighter, because I like this kind of turquoise color on the sky closer to where the bright sunlight is hitting, or the brighter sunlight is hitting, whereas this is just basically ultramarine blue and white. So just a little bit of that color and smaller brush strokes to blend the color of the sky and to bring it to where we have the nicer sort of turquoise color in the horizon. And is just making this blend. Blends are more difficult with acrylics than with oils because the acrylics dry quite fast, and you just have to be patient. And if it is not blending, like I'm trying to do now, some of it is already sticky. So it's not blending very well, but it's just a matter of using smaller brush strokes and just, I should have fixed this to the back because it moves a lot. Oh boy, I hope this video is not going to be making you crazy or, obviously we all like to have popular videos and do the best for you guys so that you enjoy. And this is giving me a lot of grief because I finished my 8x10 panels already. I need to order more, so I'm using a 9x12, which means I had to change the camera position so you could have a full view of the canvas. If you go see my previous videos, they were done with an 8x10. And so again, this area here, wispy, because it's a park. I did check, I think it's New London Beach. Oh, some sort of a boat is passing by. I live near the water and they have those strong. Okay, so again, here was sort of a lighter color. It did have some salmony there, so I might establish a bit of the salmon color on top of the turret, which I think just brings also a little bit of your eye to that structure there. So I'm just trying to make sure that this color of the sky is a good color because we're going to establish a good sort of tone in terms of intensity of the blue and how much white I have in here going from top to bottom, because we are going to establish a bit more of those clouds that I think that the clouds they don't look quite well in this particular image. So I thought, after the camera battery went out and I had to change things a bit, I looked at the painting, which is always a good idea. When we're taping, sometimes, at least in my case, I cannot stop the tape to go back and see it in perspective and say what is working, what is not working. This was a strange, too large of this cloud. And again, this was a little bit more turquoise color. So you can see that by adding the Viridian green to the mix, I made it more turquoise, and I'm adding a bit more of the white just on top of here. One thing I need to tell you that it's probably obvious as you see my other videos and you see this one. Painting on the linen is very different. I like painting on linen, but after I've been doing a bunch of paintings on cotton canvas, it's taking me a while to reaccustom myself to the feeling of the linen canvas, especially in these acrylic paints. For some reason, I think it's drying faster than with the cotton canvas that I was using before, and I'm struggling a bit with this particular painting. Of course, the sky in this painting is also a nice touch. I wanted to share this with you. It was a challenge that I said, what do I want to paint? And sometimes for these videos, you figure, do I want to paint something that I've already painted, I know how to resolve it, or do I want to push myself? And I decided to push myself this time. What I'm doing is just trying to make sure that the color of the sky is lighter on this particular area, and it goes darker as you go on the edges. And in here, we're going to establish some clouds, so that's why this area is going to be a bit darker than the bottom. And the clouds are going to have, again, a little bit of, I think you can see it there, alizarin crimson, to make that sort of rosy violet color. And it's using the same brush I had, so I still have that mix of the blue. Let's see if this works. So this particular area of clouds, I'm just gently going to brush this cloud area in here. And because the blue is still wet, I can sort of move it around. I want to use the brush to tell me where to deposit the paint. I don't want to be controlling that completely for these particular clouds. I think it's gonna make these wispy clouds better if I don't necessarily try to make the volume. And I don't know if you noticed, but this is the quality of the linen is making it a bit hard for me to deposit the paint. And it just, I think it's probably, you know, the quality of the acrylic. This doesn't happen with oils. The linen is really gorgeous for painting. It's a different surface, so just try it. You know, it's a lot of people really like the linen much better, and they just have stayed away from cotton altogether. I use both. I use whatever I have, especially depending on the size of the canvas that I want to paint. Okay, so these are sort of remnants or faraway clouds that I wanted to establish here. Sort of give the idea that the clouds go all the way to the back, and as they go down There's less definition, and they are lighter than the clouds that are closer to us. And I think this is way too sharp. So let's just work a little bit. Sometimes I use, as you can see, the broad area. Sometimes I use the tip. So this is looking to my eyes a bit better in terms of the skies, with some shapes there for the clouds on top of the other. So painting in layers is a key for so I have alizarin crimson, white, and blue. Painting in layers is really good for acrylic paints and for oil paints. This is too light for that area, so I'm going to make it a little bit darker on this one, and I'm just pushing. This was a bit too blue, but it's okay. You can change the tone, the area, and you can see I'm just using sort of a side of the brush. I could change brushes, but I like painting with one brush, especially for these demos, because I don't want to waste a lot of time with getting different brushes for you. So it's just establishing this wispy cloud in here. I think it was too dark, and it could be, you know, because the acrylics dry darker. Sometimes we don't really realize how dark we are painting until it dries. So these areas here had a bit, you know, darker color, and this area here. And now I'm gonna add a little bit more of the alizarin crimson to that mix, a little bit more. Same brush, and I didn't clean it. It's the same brush. It does look very red on the brush, but I think it's gonna work well. You know, it looks bluer there. I mean, everything is really relative to where you put it. So I just want to, you know, establish some of this reddish color here, so that it does look like there were, you know, some of those clouds in there. But I want to leave this impression of, you know, softer shapes that you just, it's intuitive that you say there's a cloud in there, but you don't see quite the complete shape of those clouds. And here I am just gonna dip a little bit of water and then wipe a bit of that, so that doesn't have too much water, but I can probably use this to, again, I want to lose some of these edges in here on these clouds, and I probably want to establish a bit darker blue in there for the sky. Okay, now on the darker blue is basically ultramarine blue and white. For this area here, I want it to look more like this one. It was becoming too light, and now I'm gonna sort of invade this shape of the cloud that I had created. So the clouds are going to be a little bit less defined in the areas closer to the edges. You want that less defined. Now I am dipping a little bit of water. I think, yeah, it is the quality of the linen that is making this a bit difficult for me to blend. It just absorbs it very, very quickly. So it's probably good that you see this, and I hope you don't get too desperate. At the end, you will see the end product usually looks like a painting, like it should, and enjoyable, hopefully. So I'm just mixing blue and white, clean blue, clean white with no red, just to bring it here. And I am just going to try to make this sky a little bit more. Oops, that was too much white, but that's okay. We can always put a bit more blue, as long as it's still wet, which it's taking less time to dry in this panel. So it's just getting to know the surface, the materials that you use, getting to know the paints that you use. If you feel that it's a bit challenging to make all of these color combinations and color mixes, you can just use more colors. You can buy sets of paint that have more colors. And by doing that, you just go to the pile of the color that you think it's gonna work better for that particular area, instead of doing like I do, that I go back and forth with, you know, darker, lighter, etc. Okay, I'm just going to get rid of that particular cloud in there. I think that was, well, you know, clouds move, and if they're not working very well for your painting, then you just get rid of them. I just wanted to establish this sky, and then maybe I'll come back and paint a little bit. Let's try that with the Alizarin crimson and the blue. Let's just try to paint sort of a hint of cloud in there. I am just dipping a bit in the water. I'm trying not to move the camera because it's definitely in the middle between myself and the painting, so it's really hard. Okay, I want to get a brighter, I hope I'm getting a brighter turquoise color for this area of the sky. And here, more white. This area of the sky was the brightest, and I believe it's weird because I think that the sun was setting sort of to my right, to the right and left. So I think we are seeing the reflection of that sunset on the sky. And that's what was giving these clouds those sort of bright colors in there. And very, very interesting reflections of this very bright sky on the clouds. Now, this cloud, I think, became too dark. Now, with blue on the same mixture that I had before, I'm just going to attempt at making this transition. And you can see you move the brush different ways. Just, you know, the sky is not like the clouds. The sky should have a bit more of the blending. So I'm getting the pile of this lighter color on top of the blue and trying to blend those colors. And I just hope I had a limited amount of space in my phone, which is the way that I'm taping these videos. And I just deleted a bunch of other videos that I had before. So I hope this is gonna work fine. I hope I can finish this painting without giving you too much headache And I sure hope that even if you don't like it, please check my other videos. You may like the others better, and be nice. This is taking effort and time, and of course we never know what the painting is going to be like, because this is we're taping real time. We haven't, I mean, at least I haven't done this before, and it's just doing this so you can have some fun and something that you might want to share and watch. If you don't like this one, just check the others, and don't think that it's not worth checking. Just go and check my other videos. Be nice. Okay. This one's a bit too dark, but let's just move on. I think the sky is giving me a lot of trouble, and that was expected. It's a sky painting. Okay, so now I clean the brush. We are gonna go now with the darks. These are transparent darks, but because I'm going to go on the layer that we already painted, it's Alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue. You don't need to mix it very well. Just make sure that you've got the two colors in there. We are going to reestablish this wall. So the best way, like I mentioned before in several of my videos, for me, the best solution for architectural features is make them the size that's comfortable for you, depending on the brush. If you make them smaller than your brush, you know, at least I have trouble with that, because then I have to be making sure that it's working correctly in terms of tiny spaces. So try to make them easy for you. It's your painting. If you want to be very accurate, then you're going to have to make it exactly in proportion. Now this particular wall is reflecting down, and for this downwards reflection, it's the same dark. Now, as you can see, I have more blue than red in that dark, which is fine because it's water, but it's always good that you have, at least I like to have both colors and not necessarily all of them perfectly mixed. And it is more blue, as I mentioned. This is the wiggly area where we are going to see some waves in here. So just establish this dark. As you can see, I'm sort of vertical for the reflection and horizontal for the water movement. And this wall is a wall that goes straight. It's actually nice to try to establish this as dark as we can. Now, this wall here is against the light. So in the camera shot, it's very dark. But if you make it too dark, it sometimes just doesn't push it farther enough. So I'm just making some notes in here. Same as this particular pylon. So this pylon, which I believe it's at the same height as this one, and it had almost the same width. So I think they are probably both of them in the water. I don't think this is in, I think it's behind that wall. But again, we don't need to establish that with any level of precision. Okay, and this one probably needs just a tiny bit of white so that it's a purple color, just to reestablish this. And there was like a little bit of a fence here, so just, you know, take your time, do this particular, it doesn't have to be precisely the same distance, and you can actually make one a little larger, like there was a little bit more of a line in there. And then on the top is just, not everything has to be clearly painted. And as you can see, I don't use a sharp line there to create this impression of. Okay, now the light was coming from the back. You can see this is in shade. So because it's in the shade, let's now start working a little bit on a purplish color, not super dark, but it's a purplish color here for the roof. It looks dark, and it did look more blue, so I'm just adding a little bit more of the white and a little bit more of the alizarin crimson, so I get more of a purple color. Yeah, I like this one better. This is really your choice, and this area of the building was something like this. I keep telling you I don't want to do too many details, so I want to make sure that I stick to my promise. There was a little thingy there. This was all in the dark, and then this particular roof is getting some of the light, but this one is definitely in the dark, and it was darker. So I'm getting to the pile. I am not cleaning the brush. I'm still using the same, but the pile that was a little bit darker. It doesn't have to be too much darker, but it's just darker than the one in the back. And I'm not going to define the windows of this building and the areas, the other areas of this building or this building here. Just shapes, and there was another rooftop here that was causing also a shadow. It's actually good not to have very bright things right by the side of this building. And then there was like a wall there, or sort of a rooftop, and then these were doors. And again, not very well defined, but I think we're getting the gist of saying there's a building in there. And here, it's in the back, so I don't want to define it too much either. All right, I think we're moving along. This does look like a structure, and this does look like a man-made building, which is the idea. I like to get this transparent wash seeing through. For some reason, I didn't plan on it, but I like the way that it's looking, and I think I'm gonna just leave it transparent wash looking like that. I don't know if it's gonna detract too much of the attention. So now with the dark color, which is our alizarin crimson and ultramarine blue, we are going to reestablish some of this wiggly area of the reflection. And this crooked pylon on the water, and then in here, just make sure that this is straight. I think we have established now the darks, so we can go back and there's some darks that need to be in these waves in here. That's going to help describing this is the Atlantic, the water in the Atlantic. There's a lot of colors in water, and so it's always good not necessarily having them all mixed. And then there's some, I'm just gonna wipe the brush. I hope I'm correct in the camera. I cannot see the image that you are seeing, so apologies for that. It's a challenging setup. Okay, now just brush it, make sure that we clean it, because the next combination of colors that I want, I want to go back to the Viridian green and the blue and white of the water. And there is a very bright reflection. There's a very bright area behind this pylon and the reflection in the water here that I want to convey. And so there's also a little bit of this color reflecting on these waves. But we will start with a little bit of blue and white and a tiny bit of the Viridian green. If you don't have Viridian green, you can use phthalocyanin green or phthalocyanin blue. This is also called phthalo, abbreviation. And if you already have something like teal or turquoise, you can use it, right? So let's first just establish, okay, yeah, this is more or less the nice sort of teal color that I wanted for this area, but I definitely want it lighter in here. So I just added white to the same brush, and you can see how I am using the brush now. It's not flat and it's not pointy, but I am using the angle brush in different ways to get the kind of brush stroke that I want for that particular area. And this is like your own signature or like your own handwriting, so you just get used to your own brush strokes. And your brushes are, I have my recommended brushes, but just try a bunch of them. That was bad. I actually went very close to the area that was still wet and it was dark, and I am establishing a light area in the reflection in the water by the dark pylon. So I just created more of the light and I'm just touching it on top of what I messed up for. Okay, so I was saying that you just try different brushes. I like the brushes that can keep their shape because it was very frustrating for me at first to see either YouTube videos or professors, and I was seeing how nice, they're like, oh, look at this, this line in here on my brush. I couldn't get a line. I was frustrated. And I then realized that it was probably because I was using not necessarily cheap brushes. Bear in mind, the ones that I'm recommending are not very expensive, but I probably was not washing them and cleaning them correctly, especially for acrylic paints. If you plan to paint, consider that after you finish, you're going to take probably the same amount of time cleaning brushes. Or you just buy more brushes more often, because that's the acrylic paints ruin your brushes if they dry. So that's looking a bit better, the effect that I wanted. Probably break here a little more, this particular reflection. Okay. And, it's fun painting water, really fun. But this is a painting about the sky, not about the water. Well, about both. How about that? Let's make it a painting of both. Painting waves is so much fun. Which, by the way, reminds me that I wanted to paint a couple of, let's see if I can do this without spoiling what I have. So I am using a light Viridian green with it's white Viridian green. I'm thinking I'm going to add just a little bit of blue. Yeah, And just to establish where these waves may be breaking, this was not in the painting, but sometimes I like to. I think this is too bright, which is fine, but it's sort of waves here that are getting into the wall and breaking into the wall. It's a bit too bright, but it's gonna be okay. Just with ultramarine blue and white, we will go over that and make it a bit darker. Okay, and there's some wavy areas in there. Again, I'm gonna make it a little bit darker. How are we doing for the sky? Okay, I see that this is probably too dark. The other areas, I think I like the way that these, now that these are looking. Maybe there are some areas to establish with a little bit of a brighter. It's good I have this same color, brighter areas of this color of the sky, the greenish color in here. And that's it for the greenish color in the sky. Oh, this area in the back. So for this area in the back, it's the same light color that we had, which is with Viridian green, ultramarine blue on this back end in here. This was definitely an area where it was also bright. Oops, I went too high, so I'm going to have to fix that. And in some of these holes, okay, and this area here also. Sort of a brighter area in there. Okay, and what I wanted to do here, just make sure that I have plenty of paint in my brush right now, plenty of paint. And I want to, these were not completely, I don't know, I don't see that they had the top end. It may be the photo, but I want to make sure that I break some of these. They were like planks at the end of that pier. Well, I think it's a pier, New London Pier, where the ferry arrives. Okay, so this is the pylon. Okay, I think that's probably all, and then I'm going to establish just a little bit of that back end. I think I mentioned I did not like that color too much because I think it's kind of a muddy brownish color. So what I'm gonna do is a light blue area, not it's just with the ultramarine blue and white. It's a very nice, ultramarine blue is one of my favorite blues. Now what I'm going to do is just a little bit, make sure that I can just mix this correctly. See how it sort of makes the blend, because I think it needed just a transition there, visual transition between the green and the more blue. Ultramarine blue is a blue that has a hint of red. So moving from a green blue to a red blue can be tricky to the eye, but it's something that creates a sense of atmosphere. Okay, so remember that it's lighter in the bottom. So when I have the pile of lighter area, I just use it. And like I said, you can see the way that I'm holding the brush differently as I do the different areas of the painting. All right, by adding more paint and working it through in the linen, I can get to mix it a little bit better without as much fighting against the linen as I have been doing. And that other area of the lighter green requires me to clean this again a bit so that I can go back to the color that I had before. It doesn't matter that it's too, that this brush still has a bit of the blue, because we're just mixing the Viridian green with the light blue. That sort of a teal or turquoise color. And it's a light color. I think one of the problems that I am facing with this painting is that I am trying to fix some area, match the previous color. And because the previous color is dry, when I try to match it, because it dries darker, I am trying to match it and it doesn't match completely very well. So that's probably why you see me going back and forth in the same areas of trouble areas that I'm finding. Now, this is definitely the lightest area of the sky, and that's why it is reflecting a lighter area from the sky. It's reflected in the water. So I'm just trying to work this, as you can see me, many different movements, is just to try to get these two colors to blend and mix. So if you are using different colors that come straight out of the tube, you're gonna have to be doing the same anyway, trying to blend and mix. I'm using just a tiny bit of water here on this end. The more water you use, I think it takes away some of the shine that acrylic colors can have. Okay, enough of that area. I think that now, what did I say that we were going to be doing? I did put some red in my brush without thinking. Oh yes, I'm going to make a little bit of a purple, very light purple color in the back, which is gonna be more, hopefully more blue than red. And I think it needs to be lighter. For some reason, I mean, it has to be darker than the sky, but you know, this line here, I think it still needs to be a bit bluer, which is fine. It's just gonna read correctly with having all of these different colors. Now, the water should be a straight line. So that's what I'm trying to do here, a straight line of the water. And I hope it's straight because I am at an angle, and sometimes painting at an angle doesn't necessarily help when you're trying to do something that's straight. But it's my excuse. You can use a ruler if you prefer. Now let's shape sort of this pylon on both ends. And this doesn't have to be all necessarily covered with this blue. We can add a bit more of the reddish color as it's approaching the area of the brighter reflection that gives a better impression of some light being reflected in those trees. Now, the more flat you use the color, definitely it flattens the image, which is okay for the far end of your painting. Whatever is farther, it's good that it's flatter. Okay, this was too dark, I mentioned that, and I said I just wanted to make sure that I get this better. This one had a bit more of a reddish hint in the belly. So, time to get a little bit of it out and just wisping it for this particular cloud. You can use other shape of brushes if you want to. There are some brushes that are called fan brushes that a lot of people like for clouds. I find that I like these angle brushes and I like the flat brushes. But I use filberts, I use the other ones I told you, the fan brushes. I mean, I've used, just try anything. That cloud, I think it's looking better, but probably too dark still. So I'm just mixing a bit of the sky color on top of it. And definitely there was some more of wispy clouds in here. I think I did mention to you that I was going to be painting more clouds on the top. And this is the way that I wanted to paint them, because as they go in the back, they are a little less defined, but it was still shining in that, it was still showing in that particular end with a little bit more of a reddish color, which I think just made a very nice contrast. Okay, I think we can call it a day. I think this is an example of a painting where I wanted to show you more work on the sky than in the previous paintings. I have not done any sky, and I wanted to show you more of a dramatic sky like the one I had that day in New London, Connecticut at the train station. And I think, I hope that you were able to see all the way to the end without getting too tired. And please tune into my video channel. I have many other videos, many different topics. I'm just going to make this a bit more sort of less defined. Just lose that edge a little bit. And anyway, please check my other videos in the channel and paint. It's fun to paint. It's nice to paint, and it's a very good relaxing activity. Even though you see me struggling sometimes with the paint, it's still something that it's very relaxing, very enjoyable, and an activity that definitely leaves you with a sense of creativity. And it is just very, very, very nice. A little bit more of a wispy cloud in here too, and a little bit more of the white color in the back. Oh, that's actually a good way of wisping, making that a whisper cloud. The clouds, as they go farther, they are lighter in color. I think this one still is too dark. Somehow it is really drying very dark, so okay, it's fine. And just one final touch I believe it's needed is that by that darker one we need to make the lining of that cloud with a little bit of the light white color with a golden yellow, and I think that's going to be it. And I hope that you enjoyed it and that you feel inspired to try to paint and try to create your own sky, dramatic or not. As I mentioned in the other videos that I have, do not have dramatic skies. So if you were frustrated with this one, go ahead and take a look at the others and enjoy and stay safe. Oops. This always happens to me when I'm doing the end. I make a brush stroke that, oops, is like an oops brush stroke, and no problem. It's good for you to see how it's fixed. I definitely want this to be very light in color. So I hope you liked the, what we did was focus on the sky in this time, making sure that we have these dramatic wispy areas. There's a light that is reflecting from the sunset that's behind us, and it was a very dramatic sky on a summer day. And what we did was, you know, the building is just insinuated, not all of it is actually finished. This structure is like just insinuated also. The sky is dramatic. It's sort of dark here, lighter here. It's probably getting too dark here, but that's fine. And then the water should look like water. I think it's good. It looks like there's running water. The only thing I mentioned was that I was gonna make those a little darker, and I forgot to do that. And so let's just use a little bit of the ultramarine blue and the white to get those waves in there, because I'm not covering all of it, but in the shadow it shouldn't be that bright, and it still looks bright because it's against the dark wall. But yeah, it definitely was probably, you know, too light. And with that same color, that same dark color, is just getting a little bit of an entryway here. And I did say that I wanted to fix some of this wavy areas that I had. It's by the bottom of the painting. I hope that you can see it. And now with the dark area that I still have without cleaning the brush, is just adding some of the dark on top with the mix. And I still believe that this might be too light. Okay. Yes, I think that's actually looking better than what I had before. It was way too light, and maybe just a little bit lighter on some of the top areas here, but not too much, because this area is in the dark. So just some of these water splashes. Okay, that gives the idea, or at least defines, where am I seeing that particular end of the wall. Where is it, so that, you know, the eye is more comfortable understanding this is the bottom of that structure, and that's where this is hitting. And I'm just defining a bit of the dark around it, so that layers and layers define these waves. And even though I don't know if you can see it in the video, but in the actual painting, you can see the layers one on top of the other. Thank you very much. Enjoy your painting and have fun and stay safe. Thank you.